We win some small pots before picking up 10-9 of spades under the gun +1 at 3:17 in the morning. I raise to 60 from the absolute bottom of our range. The cutoff calls, we're heads up out of position, the flop comes Queen 8-7 with 2 diamonds and a spade. We've got an open ender with a backdoor flush draw. When we're playing out of position, we're going to be checking a lot more instead of c-betting. I check here to see how the cutoff wants to play this. He's not giving us a free card. He bets 75. We didn't check with intentions of folding. After grabbing a few green chips, we call. Maybe we can spike the 6 of hearts one time. The dealer puts out the king of clubs, not a card I'm too happy about. I check. If the cutoff fires again, we're going to have to fold. There are only 3 really clean outs for us because even if we hit a jack, we can still get straight over straighted by ace-10, though that's not all that likely. The cutoff checks back, giving us an opportunity to drill the river. That's what we do. We get the 6 of diamonds, giving us a straight, but the flush draw gets there as well. If we check, nearly all worse hands in ours will check back. We'll be calling a bet anyway, even if we're beat. We can't let the worst hands in ours that might call a bet off the hook. I bet 250 for value. If we get raised, we can consider folding. In fact, that's likely what we'll do. Although we've already seen that raises and re-raises out here aren't necessarily what they seem. We don't have to worry about it. The cutoff calls. We show them that we got there on the Mississippi River. The cutoff can't beat us. There's no one that's really been able to tonight. We're running good and doing everything that we can do to extract as much value as possible outside of the queen-jack hand. In this one, we're dealt 10-9 of spades on the button. The straddle's on. The cutoff raises to 50. He's the only player that we've been able to beat with jiggities today. We could call, or we could mix in some 3 bets. These opponents are making pots big enough on their own without me adding to it. I call. The big blind is the player that we beat with queen 10 suited. He calls. The under the gun straddler is the opponent we beat in the previous hand with ace queen. He 3-bets to 340. All 3 Spanish players at the table are involved in this pot. They've teamed up to collectively get revenge. It's a smart move that they probably learned from Maximus Decimus Meridius. The cutoff folds, we're playing deep and are in position. I call to see a flop. I'm not going to let these guys push me around. The big blind folds, it's heads up. The flop comes ace 8-3 rainbow. On the surface, we've got nothing, but if you dig a little deeper, we've also pretty much got nothing. The opponent down bets to 240. He could have aces or ace-king, but he can also have hands like kings, queens, jacks, 10s, and 9s that'll hate this flop. And what those hands will hate even more is getting called on the flop. I joked earlier about having nothing, but there are a ton of cards that can help us improve to a draw, like any spade, queen, jack, 7, or 6. I float, with plans to turn our hand into a bluff if the opponent checks to us. The dealer puts out the 7 of spades. It's the best card that we could have gotten, so we pick up the straight flush draw. Under the gun slows down and checks. This is our opportunity to win the pot without making a real hand. If under the gun has one of those high pairs below an ace, I don't need to bet much as a semi-bluff to get him to fold. If I had a strong hand like ace-queen or a set of 8s, I wouldn't bet that much anyway. I make it 400. The opponent believes the story that we've got a monster as he folds without even thinking about it. We get the bluff through to get our biggest win of the day, and we do it with complete air. The opponent is a great dude who would later tell me that he had pocket 9s. If you replay the video, you can kind of make out the 9s as he folds. I'm now only down 1800 with everything trending in the right direction. In this one, we've got 10-9 suited in the cutoff. I raised to 300. I'm getting tired, but I felt like I've had an edge in the game. I just need to make a big hand so I can finally catch Paul bluffing. So far, he's picked his spots well and put me to tough decisions. Paul calls in the small blind. The under the gun straddler calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes 10-9-7 rainbow. We've got top 2 pair on a very coordinated board. Checks to me. We're going to be betting for value. I make it 400. Paul may have lost every marble in his collection. He puts in the check raise to 1400. Of course he does. Paul has had quite the session. He was stuck 30,000 early on. Then he got out of the hole to be up 20,000, but he's down a little from the high point. He certainly plays a high variance style of poker that makes the game exciting, but it's also frustrating at times when he's making hands against you or gets you to fold the best one. Under the gun +1 folds. Against certain players, I may not necessarily re-raise, but Paul has been battling with us all day. We haven't had too much to really fight back with. We finally have an opportunity to force him to make a tough decision. I re-raised to 5,000 with the flagship that we acquired from him in the previous hand that we went over. Paul isn't scared of a little re-raise. He calls for 3,600 more. Maybe he already has a straight, and I'm falling into a trap that he's setting. The turn is the 5 of hearts. It doesn't change much. No new straights get there. Paul checks. I should be betting, but I'm concerned that Paul could have us beat somehow. I check back to keep the pot smaller if we're behind, and to allow Paul an opportunity to bluff the river if he doesn't have much. The dealer puts out another 5, pairing the board. Paul checks one last time. If he had a straight draw or a combo draw like 8-7 that he check raised us with on the flop, he can't really call a bet. Maybe we can get value out of Jack 10 or Ace 10 that might have check raised us and then called our re-raise, but he's such a wild card. I don't want to bet, get jammed on, and have to fold 10-9. There's already a 5-figure pot, and it's not impossible that we're beat by a straight, full house, or somehow miraculously trip 5s. I check back. Paul says that we win. I show top 2 pair. He'd later tell me that he had a king jack for a double gutter on the flop. I'm glad that we faded the queen at 8. It's been an incredibly long day, but I've been enjoying it. With this win, for the first time in almost 10 hours of playing this session, we're finally unstuck. It's been a marathon. The very next hand, we've got 10-9 suited with the straddle on. The cutoff raises to 30. This is the same opponent who we 3-bet last hand. He's a good young player who tells me that his first introduction to poker was from watching this channel 4 or 5 years ago when he was still in high school. Anytime I hear that kind of thing, it warms my heart. I call to destroy him. The under the gun straddler calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. It comes ace 8-7 with 2 spades. We smash it with the straight flush draw. I check. Under the gun checks. I'm already anticipating putting in the check raise. Then the cutoff checks back so we don't get the opportunity. The turn is the jack of clubs giving us the nuts. There's a second flush draw on the board. I bet 90 for value. Under the gun folds right away. The cutoff might have connected with the turn, or maybe he checked back the flop or pot control with an ace because he calls to see the river. The dealer puts out another 8. The flush draws miss, and so does every straight draw except 10-9, which we happen to have. I'm not very concerned about the board pairing, given that a check through on the flop, and then the opponent only called our turn bet. Our straight should be best, even though it's been slightly downgraded and it's no longer the nuts. I go with another overbet, a 350, to hopefully make it look like we're attempting a big bluff with a missed draw after seeing the cutoff take a pretty passive line post-flop. The young player's deep in the tank trying to piece together what we've got. He definitely doesn't want to get bluffed and thinks that he might have a good enough hand to win. I wasn't too worried anyway, but it's becoming more and more clear that the opponent definitely doesn't have anything that he's considering raising with. After over 2 minutes of questioning all the decisions he's made in his life that led him to this point, he finally folds. I don't want to make him wait for the vlog to come out. I show him that he made the correct laydown. He tells me that he had ace 4 of spades, which had us completely crushed on the flop. It's too bad that the jack of spades didn't come out on the turn instead of the jack of clubs because we would have gotten all the chips. Still, it's lucky for us to come away with the victory. I make my way over to the second table where Sarah O'Connor is sitting directly on our left. She's the one who made the beautiful gifts for my kids. We pick up 10-9 of hearts once again. This time we're under the gun. I need to give Sarah an opportunity to get me. I raise to 15. Sarah won't be letting this chance slip away. She calls. There could be some dangerous flops for us if she truly has the jiggities. The button won't be allowing us to see 3 cards that easily. He lays down the law with a 3-bet to 50. The way I see it, we're free-rolling this 10-9 of hearts after winning with the same combo earlier. I call for 35 more. Sarah calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. The dealer puts out king 8-4 with 2 hearts. We've got a flush draw with potential to hit a backdoor straight. I check. Sarah isn't playing this the traditional way, which would be to check to the pre-flop aggressor. Instead, she takes the initiative and bets 60. This clears out the button. He folds. I'm content to see a turn for this price. I call, wondering if Sarah's manifestation about stacking me is going to come to fruition right now. The turn is the 5 of hearts, giving us the flush. It's very possible that Sarah has the higher flush and bets small on the flop with the better draw. We could certainly be drawing dead. I check. Sarah might be trying to milk me, or maybe she's trying to induce a raise. She makes a tiny bet of 60 again. She has 687 total. Maybe we're beat, maybe we're not. One thing I know is that the river won't help us improve. It's time to see if Sarah really has anything that she can double up through me with.
All in.
It's a relief not to get snapped off by a hand that has us dead. Sarah's probably running past vlogs through her head to see if she can remember something I did or said that might help her make the right decision here. Maybe she's wondering if I'm trying to bully her just because she was trash talking a bit online. I've definitely had similar thoughts myself when there are interesting table dynamics at play, but in reality, I'm just playing this hand how I'd play it against anyone else. After 30 seconds, Sarah makes the call. We give her the bad news that we've got the flush. We almost surely have the winner. Now, all we need to know is what cards we need to fade.
Sarah, you want to flip it over now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Sarah reveals her top pair and draw to the second nuts. It's clear why she was tanking. Whether she wins or loses, it's kind of a cooler. There are 7 hearts remaining in the deck that'll give the opponent the win. That's a decent amount. The river is another 5 pairing the board. Our 10 high flush holds and a huge all-in pot. Part of me feels bad, but I'm also a little confused about how I could have won. It's almost as if the deck didn't care at all about our manifestations. There are plenty of good food options at Hard Rock, but there's no need to call a server over since Under the Gun +1 is all full after eating a big slice of humble pie. A pile of chips comes our way to get the stack up to $22.50 on the day.
We're dealt 10-9 suited on the button. A player in middle position raises to 30. The hijack calls. There's a good squeeze opportunity. We're going to be 3-betting this hand in this situation about half the time. I make it 130. I can potentially win $75 without seeing a flop. If I don't take it down immediately, my hand plays well in position. The initial pre-flop raiser folds. He's who I was most concerned about. The hijack calls for 100 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes King 10-6 rainbow. We've got middle pair and some backdoor draws. The opponent checks. I'm in kind of a strange situation. My hand isn't super strong, but it could definitely be best. I bet 100 to keep control of the pot and deny some equity. This will probably get folds out of some hands like small to medium pocket pairs that didn't improve. Some hands that are beating me might call like King Queen suited, and then some hands that I'm ahead of might call like Ace Queen, Ace Jack, and Queen Jack. The hijack matches my bet. I'm still not quite sure exactly where I'm at. The turn is the 4 of hearts. The opponent checks. I don't want this pot to get too large when I have showdown value. I check back for pot control. The river is the 8 of spades. I'm glad that it wasn't an ace, queen, or jack. If I was ahead on the flop and turn, I'm probably still ahead, unless I happen to have run into pocket 8s. The hijack is assembling chips. My read is that he's contemplating whether or not to bet as a bluff with a missed straight draw. I checked back turn for pot control. I don't like folding to bets after doing that on previous streets. If the hijack actually fires a 270 that it appears he's considering betting, I'm going to call because I don't 100% believe that he has me beat. Having a 10 is a key card, making it less likely that he'd have a set or 2 pair. He would probably 3-bet ace-king pre-flop, and I don't see this particular player wanting to bet for value in this situation with a hand like king-queen or king-jack, although other opponents certainly might. I think he'd prefer to check call in those instances, or just get the showdown for free. In my mind, it's more probable that a bet from him would be an attempt to steal the pot with ace or queen high. The opponent shows some restraint and checks. There's no need for me to bet since I doubt I'd get called by worse. I check back with the winner. The opponent shows ace-jack offsuit for a missed draw. That's what I thought. I was gonna call if you bet. I thought you had ace queen or ace jack. Thanks.
This is the first significant hand that's gone my way in a while. Even at this third table, I hadn't won or really gotten involved much at all during my time here, which is why the player at the table said finally. Next we're dealt 10-9 suited in the cutoff. I raised to 30. The small blind is the only caller. We're heads up in position and the flop comes King King 3 with 1 spade. We have pretty much nothing except some backdoor draws. The small blind checks. I bet 20 to see if perhaps I can get the opponent to fold any hand better than mine or one that has equity. Really, I'm just trying to get him to fold anything. The small blind isn't a folder. He calls but doesn't seem thrilled. The turn is the 7 of clubs. We've got a lot of nothing. The opponent checks. I can't win this by checking back. I stick with my read on the opponent that he probably doesn't have much. I bet 60. I included the audio for the bet sizing because the small blind actually gets his chips in there before I do. Very interesting. Often, quickly calling is a tactic used to exude strength when a person really has something at the bottom of their calling range. If someone truly had a strong hand, I'd expect them to pause and consider raising. I still don't love seeing the call. I'm not sure what to put the small blind on, but I don't get the sense that he has trips or better. The river is the 9 of clubs, giving us a pair of 9s. We go from having no showdown value at all to having a lot. A strange thing happens here as the opponent leads for 110. He check called 2 streets and then bets river. This is a very similar line that a different player took against me in the first hand that we went over. You may remember in that instance, the opponent was bluffing with a slightly better missed straight draw, and I folded. I'm getting a lot of small hand energy from the opponent in this situation, and I already told you that I don't like surrendering. I make the call, and we get some good news.
1 pair.
Me too.
Oh, dirty river.
We get lucky to drill a 9 at the end, otherwise we would have had to have folded to the river bet. My read throughout the hand pays off though. We win another pot on a day when things have mostly gone pretty well.